Recording in progress. And before we go into announcements, we'll just do some introductions. Renee, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Renee Bolio Banks, Indigenaka Jaganashimong. My English name is Renee Bolio Banks. Zibikwe Indigenaka's Indigo. My spirit name is River Woman. I'm from Leech Lake, the Eagle Clan, and I've been at NACC for about 4 years, working as an elder. Miigwech, it's nice to meet all of you.
Thank you. And Michelle?
Hi, I'm Michelle Corcoran. I'm the nurse manager for the MAT program here.
And Lindsay?
Hi, I'm Lindsay Kinkuni. I'm the Community and Tribal Engagement Specialist here at NACC and a Boys for It band member.
And my name is Tina, Harm Reduction Program Supervisor here at NACC. So we're going to share our slides now, quick, before we pass it off to Mindy. So today we have Mindie Bird with us, presenting Mending Broken Hearts from Sanford Health. And for those who are new to our ECHO, we are a Native American community clinic located in South Minneapolis on Franklin Avenue. We've been around since 2003. And currently we offer a lot of different services, including primary care, MOUD, including Suboxone, among a couple other things, infectious disease intervention and treatment, social service support, dental and behavioral health, intensive outpatient. We have some spiritual care providers who can offer traditional healing services, health promotion and maintenance programs, and harm reduction outreach services, just to name a few. And passing it off to Lindsay now.
So some session guidelines. Please know protected health information. We ask if you could mute yourself if you're not speaking, please. Always welcome to eat your lunch during the session. If you could let us know who you are in the chat function, name, title, organization, and email. Especially email, it helps me to be able to pass out the survey at the end. And then we do ask or invite you to use the chat to ask any questions or make any comments. Some announcements. Our next ECHO will be March 1st, and that's going to be on the Facebook program for American Indian women in OUD recovery. And that's with Christy Patton, Karina Sabak, and Antonia Young from Mayo Clinic. This is a list of a few other ECHOs that we recommend that cover similar topics. If you have questions on any of these, feel free to let me know in the chat. We do offer CE credits for those who are eligible. We just ask that you fill out the survey that I'll email out to you at the end. So please, if you could make sure to put your email in the chat. Thank you. And then case presentations, you're welcome and encouraged to send us if you have examples that you'd like to share. They make for a great discussion. And with that, I will stop sharing and I will hand it over to our speaker today, Mindie Bird.
All right, so I'm not the most tech savvy person. So can everyone see the screen? The slides that I shared?
Yes, we can all see it.
Perfect.
Thank you
for that. All right, so my name is Mindie Bird. I'm a licensed alcohol and drug counselor. And right now I work with Sanford Behavioral Health, which is part of the Sanford Health Corporation. We are pretty unique in the fact that we are a behavioral health center embedded within a medical system. So we have a lot of unique features like being able to influence the medical system on how to be more therapeutic in their approaches with clientele. And then we are also able to navigate the healthcare system with individuals. I work for the outpatient program, specifically with the Wellbriety Certified Treatment Program. So Sanford has recently taken the stance that there will always be a space and a voice for Native Americans in recovery within their outpatient programming. And that is what I oversee. So we just became a Wellbriety Certified Treatment Center. And with that, we offer culturally specific Mending Broken Hearts and 12-step recovery groups. So that means that I work with not just one, but we work with 4 elders who help guide and influence the work that we do to make sure that we are doing things in a really mindful way with incorporating the culture and the needs of the people. I myself am an enrolled member of the Blackfeet Reservation in northern Montana. However, I have lived over here in Bemidji for, gosh, since I was like in elementary school, which I'm not going to tell you how long ago that was. So I'm here today to talk to you about Mending Broken Hearts. So Mending Broken Hearts is one of the things that we offer here, and it is a cultural approach to grief and loss. I had the opportunity to learn about Mending Broken Hearts from Marlon Farley, who was one of the co-founders of Mending Broken Hearts. So I'll just run you through the curriculum. Some of the things that we're going to discuss today is for our population, we know, especially for Native Americans, that sometimes the grief and loss that we experience and we feel is not necessarily our own. It is historical. We're going to talk about mind mapping and how that helps with healing from some of that grief and loss. And then also the focus of Mending Broken Hearts is that we heal as a community. This happened to us as a community, and the only way we can heal from it is as a community. And then I'll also share with you guys some of the cultural integration that we offer throughout our program. So on the first day is really focused on identifying grief that is not ours to keep. So there's a video that we watch, and anybody can watch it on YouTube. You can just type in Journey to Forgiveness, and it goes through interviewing a lot of elders in the community when they were walking with the Hoop of Many Feathers for the Wellbriety. They also were interviewing elders as well about their experience with historical trauma. And so the Journey to Forgiveness is part of that journey of interviewing elders from all over. It's a very powerful thing to watch. And then from there, you can talk to your group members about complete and incomplete relationships. Complete relationships are things that when people have moved on from our lives, whether they're passed on or still living, we don't have any more questions about them. An incomplete relationship is something that we still have questions. We still wonder, why did you say that thing to me? Why did this happen? And I'm pretty sure we all can relate to having those types of situations. And then we start to focus on what messages and myths of grief and loss have we been taught? And then do we truly believe these messages? So a really common one that comes out is like, real men don't cry, or if you cry, they stay stuck. So a lot of the message that we have received as a community is that crying isn't something you can do, something that's not allowed. What I have a picture here is one of the ceremonies we do on the first day, and we call it the ribbon ceremony. And so each one of those ribbons that you see there represents an elder or an ancestor that we want to bring into our circle with us to have them heal. So when people are feeling overwhelmed or overstressed or, really triggered by the conversations that are happening within this, especially first day, they're really welcomed to come sit in this circle here of ribbons to be surrounded by all that knowledge and that healing of the ancestors before us. It really creates a safe place for them to just sit down and smudge or talk, and we offer different, maybe like we'll put a journal or a fidget toy in there or something, just a safe place where someone can just kind of feel surrounded by just some good extra love while we're talking about these really difficult topics. So those are one of the things that how we integrate culture. We may also, during this time, especially when we talk about the Journey to Forgiveness, we may also teach a song to our clientele at this time. One of our elders is a song keeper. It's one of her gifts, and she'll come in and she'll teach them an Asema song. And the Asema song is really meant to go back and offer healing to those that have experienced that trauma, and it helps them move on to the next place in their journey that they need to be in their healing. So those are some of those things that we do for cultural integration on the first day. On the second day, and this is when it gets pretty kind of tough, we begin to identify what then is our own traumas, what do we have to heal from, and by doing that, we begin to walk through our personal trauma timelines. So we tell people to go back to the very first memory that they have and write it all the way down until present day. And you usually give people about a half hour. There's usually tiers. So a lot of the times for like ceremony, we tell everyone that every time we meet and gather together, it's ceremony. Everything we do is treated like a ceremony. And so one of the things that we were advised to do is that we never wipe somebody's tears away for them. We never offer them a hug. We never give them Kleenex. That's something that they have to ask for themselves. Because our elder says that he really feels like that's disrupting that grieving process for them, that they need to be able to go through that. And after he said that, it made total sense. I could think about times myself when I've like been in the midst of crying and somebody's offered me a Kleenex and all of a sudden it stops. You know, I've never thought about it that way before. So we've actually had really good luck in people saying that that was like an empowering experience for them. Because they were able to cry on their own terms. So this is what day 2 is about. We also at the end, it's part of Mending Broken Hearts, but you also have to read your trauma timeline to somebody else. So this is when you talk about healing as a community. So we really emphasize in there that when you are sharing your trauma timeline with somebody, that other person is just listening. We ask that they don't respond, that they don't react in any way to what they're being told about someone's trauma. Our goal is to sit there and listen and not resolve, because we're just trying to sit with that person in that moment. So from there, a person will find an incomplete relationship in their life, and then they will continue on to write a letter of forgiveness for that moment. And so that will be the third day, where we really focus on healing as a community. So we will focus on writing that letter of forgiveness. And then from there, depending upon who you're working with, we've either burned the letters or we have gotten water dissolvable paper and we have dissolved it in water to signify letting it go and forgiving it. And then we talk about the 4 directions of forgiveness and how we can integrate that into moving forward and letting these things go, no longer letting them hold on to us. So when we heal as a community, then on the day 3, we really emphasize the fact that we've learned about historical grief and loss. So what messages and myths have I been living by that aren't my own? What is my own personal grief and loss? How do I learn new healthy behaviors of grief and loss? So like a lot of people have come out saying that they really learned that, it's okay to cry. They need to learn how to cry. Because for a lot of people, they'll go straight to anger. And then also practice some new and healthy behaviors of letting go and forgiving. So we really talk too in that day 2, day 3 type stuff is really like, what does it mean to let go? How do you know you've let go? There may be different ceremonies that we'll offer, like up here, we do wiping of the tears or cedar ceremony. If there's enough stuff that comes through, some of our elders who sit in the ceremony, in the program with us may advise like, hey, I really think we need to spend the 3rd day in sweat lodge or in cedar ceremony for some of these things to really move through people. So that's kind of how we integrate the culture along with what needs to happen. And the whole emphasis, like I said, is that we're going through this as a community. And it really changes a lot of people's perspectives when you begin to learn that the things that you've experienced and the things that you've been through aren't as isolating as we think it is sometimes. So in conclusion, what Mending Broken Hearts is really about is healing that is done within a community, that if we were hurt together, then we have to heal together. And that's the gist of Mending Broken Hearts and how we integrate it and what we do. So I know that was a quick presentation, but just wanted to make sure I left room open to see if there was any comments or questions or thoughts.
It looks like we do have a question from Mark Newpen. And Mark, did you want to ask your question or do you want me to read it?
I can go ahead and ask it. I
Okay.
grew up in Arizona with 2 tribes at my small farm town school. And residential schools were fairly common there. And I'm curious how common they were in Minnesota and what percent impacted negatively the Native Americans here in Minnesota. They were hideous, horrible. I've met people who spent most of their life growing up in a residential school and never really got to know their family. That's that hideous. So I'm curious, how often does this impact you or particularly your elders?
Oh, immensely. Like, I don't have like statistics or numbers, but I probably could find them. Or if anybody in here happens to know. But every Native American that I've worked with, and in Bemidji here, we're surrounded by 3 reservations. So there's a pretty big population of Native American representation here in Bemidji, and I think everyone I've come across has a story of, you know, my aunt or my uncle or my grandparents, even in myself, like my older aunts and uncles all went to boarding school. You know, it was kind of common up until I want to say like the 1960s and 70s. It's pretty common practice to go to boarding school. So I mean, it's a huge conversation that happens a lot that is still impactful to our generations even today.
Do you think, well, you're talking about a large percent, and that disrupted families,
Mm-hmm.
disrupted your confidence, what you learn at home, all of that stuff. So what you're saying is most were probably negatively impacted in some way, socially, emotionally, or even physically. I was just curious. It's hideous.
Yeah. And I think that's one thing that's really great about Indigenous healing is that you'll find that it's really common to talk about, you know, the medicine wheel approach to healing. Like, how did this impact the community emotionally, physically, mentally, and spiritually? You know, and I love that.
I agree.
Thank you. It looks like, Gail, did you want to ask your question?
Sure, thanks. I just wondered, you know, those trauma timelines can really be, you know, they can just exponentially create their own wind in group. And I'm wondering how you handle that. Do you do one timeline, you know, a week, or, you know, when people present, or how long do you take, you know, in developing those and allowing people to kind of pace themselves through those? I was just wondering about the timeline on that.
You know, it's been really interesting. We have done this Mending Broken Hearts now three times within this program. And one of those times, our elder felt really moved that, so when people were writing their trauma timelines, like normally, okay, let me back up here. When you go to become a facilitator for Mending Broken Hearts, you go through it like you are a participant in it. So when I went and did my training, I had to go through it like I was a participant. So I got to be familiar with my own trauma timeline. So because of that, the only trauma timeline that gets shared in a group setting is mine, because I'm comfortable and I'm okay sharing that. Otherwise, that everyone goes and does their own trauma timeline on their own time, and then they come together in groups, like groups of 2 or 3, and then they share just with those individuals, and then they with those individuals. However, we did have one session where our elder felt it was just, there was just so much, I think, that he did ask everyone to share in a sweat lodge. So everyone went into the sweat lodge and they shared their trauma timelines. And that's just, you know, for that session, for some reason, our elder really felt like that's what needed to happen. So that was an interesting session. But it was a really powerful one. People walked out of that like, you know, I heard a lot of people say that they felt like reborn. I don't know if that answered your question pretty well. So it kind of depends upon the group and, you know, how flexible you're willing to be with like the cultural considerations that need to happen in those moments too.
Thank you. No, that addressed it because I know that can really get complex. You know,
Yeah.
and I was just imagining it and all the, you know, that transference that happens and all of that shared, you know, trauma because, you know, you have all that energy, you know, in the session and, you know, wow, how much can you tolerate as you're working with it yourself? You know,
Right.
so I was just curious about, you know, how you handle that. So thank you very much.
Yeah. I think it's helpful too that, you know, we always encourage that a person never be reactive to what they're hearing. You know, like one of the things that I always tell people is like, you're just a big heart with ears. Like you don't get to hold on to what you hear. That's not your job. Your job is to just sit there in that moment and then you let it go. You know, so normally after too, I'll bring people together and we'll have a smudging and like a debriefing afterwards too. Just to make sure that people are in a good space before they leave that day.
Can I go ahead? Yep. Okay, I have a question that's turned into several questions. So you mentioned that the program is a Wellbriety certified program.
Mhm.
So how is that? So how does a program become Wellbriety certified? I mean, I know that individuals can go through the training. So is it different than that? Also, so you mentioned the Mending Broken Hearts Program. Is that a separate training that everybody goes through or just individuals within the Wellbriety certified program?
So to become a Wellbriety certified treatment program, there are standards on the White Bison website, and you have to meet the criteria. So like for us, you have to have 1 or 2 LADCs that run the program, or like state certified, because there's also UMACAD in Minnesota, that are willing to run your program. And then you have to offer either the adolescents or the adult 12 program. You have to offer Mending Broken Hearts, which for us, the way we decided to go about it is we offer the 12 steps as part of our outpatient program. And our Mending Broken Hearts, we offer to the community as community healing and outreach.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, so you don't specifically have to have substance use to be in the Mending Broken Hearts that we do.
Oh, I love
So
that.
it's just kind of for whoever wants to be there. And then you also have to have a peer recovery coach who has done their Warrior Down.
They're what? I'm sorry.
It's called Warrior Down.
Mm-hmm.
And it's their peer recovery coach training. So you have to have each one of those members, and then you also have to prove that you're working with an elder of some kind who's advising your program.
Okay. Do you guys also do celebrating families?
I want to. I'm actually going to sit in on a webinar on the 22nd to learn more about it. I got to meet another program in Wisconsin who does celebrating families, and they said that they had a really hard time maintaining it because it takes such a huge collaboration of different organizations.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of hopeful here at Sanford because we're all under one roof that we might be able to make it happen here. But yeah, the 22nd, they're doing a live webinar about it.
Good to know. Thank you.
Looks like there's a comment in the chat from Mark. A physician friend out in Bremerton, Washington Navy Hospital created a tribal sweatshop for addiction healing and was very helpful.
That
Was
was,
it Sweat Lodge?
Yeah.
Or-
I said shop, sorry about that.
Oh,
Oh,
That was back in the 1970s and 80s, and that was part of the drug addiction treatment program, and it was very helpful. So I commend him.
Yeah, we have within our program, with the 12-step program that we do, which is separate than Mending Broken Hearts, we do a monthly sweat lodge. We have a elder who does a shake tent, and then we also do a monthly pipe ceremony as well. So we're pretty blessed in our program, I think, to be able to work with the diversity of elders who bring a lot of different skill sets to our program. We're pretty lucky in that way.
I have another question. Sorry. I'm wondering, how do you guys incorporate, or do you incorporate harm reduction into your programs? Is like, do clients have to have a goal of sobriety to be in the program? And you know, that just how do you guys manage harm reduction type stuff along with the Wellbriety?
Yeah, so actually we are a harm reduction program. So all that we ask is that people have a goal to either decrease or progress in their using somehow. Like if you want to give up heroin but still think that you're going to drink, like we'll work with that. That's totally fine. And actually, because of this work, so everything that did my work comes from a state opiate response grant with the state. And because of that, we actually identified a huge need for there to be a like clean syringe needle change program up here. And so we had just applied for a new grant to be able to incorporate some of those things here.
That's awesome. Cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
Mindy, we were kind of talking right before this, but how have you seen the program grow? You were kind of mentioning from like the first, when you first started till now.
Mm-hmm. So previously, I've only been here at Sanford for 2 years, and Sanford during COVID ended up going through a huge switch like every program did. And one of the things that they really identified needing was cultural programming for people. Because once again, like in Bemidji, we're surrounded by 3 reservations. It's hard to deny the fact that that's needed. And so even within the 2 years, like I've got to watch this program turn into a, how do we do this? Let's just offer this one group, to all of a sudden we're a Wellbriety certified treatment program. And in the spring, this April, we're already talking about how do we add adolescents? How do we address adolescents and their recovery? And not only that, but like as I was mentioning, it's also expanded to like what it means to provide culturally competent care within Sanford. So we've been asked to, me and my little cohort of people in the program here have been asked to do trainings for like the medical side of Sanford. And so I keep in touch with some of the medical staff over there. And I was so happy to hear like 2 weeks ago, our hospice nurses were able to give one of the residents who was passing a cedar bath as she was passing. That was one of their questions wanted. And her family wasn't able to make it here in time to do that for her. And so the nurses felt comfortable because they had that training and that exposure to them. They felt comfortable preparing that and helping the family through that, which I was just like, I was just proud of them for, not asking any questions and making a big fuss about it, being able to take on that challenge and be able to say like, I know what that is. I know why you're requesting that. Here's how we can support you. So that's kind of some of the ways the program has grown and expanded in the short amount of time.
That's amazing. Alana, it looks like you have a question.
Yeah, sorry, I'd come off camera, but my computer is starting to kind of wiggle out. I'm not sure if you can hear me okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, I think you kind of answered it already. That was just my question, was any opportunity to do cultural awareness for providers working in the organization who aren't familiar with traditional cultural ways, just like how you're talking about with the cedar bath. So I think you are doing that. Is that just for Sanford providers, or do you work with community organizations who may be wanting some additional education around cultural and traditional ways?
You know, I haven't gotten that request yet, but I'm more than happy to, you know, offer that out in the community, to whatever place feels like they want to discuss that more. Mostly get it within Sanford, because you know, Sanford, I'm not gonna lie, I love my job here, but it is it has some obstacles when it comes to culturally sensitive care. In the past, it hasn't had the best reputation, and so I'm really lucky that here they're willing to be really open-minded.
Yeah, that is awesome. I've worked in a Sanford system before, and it wasn't I would agree with you on that.
Yeah.
There can be some barriers. I think it's just amazing what you guys are doing. And I think in terms of addressing that kind of historical trauma really helps, I think, the care team understand the person as a whole and not just see them as having, you know, a substance use disorder or mental health or behavioral health concerns. So I'm hoping that your program can be spread beyond.
Yeah, that would be the dream. So any other thoughts, comments, questions, anything I can help with?
I'm kind of curious. Hi, I'm Simone. I work over at NACC, Native American Community Clinic, and with the Red Lake IOP program. And I'm curious if you guys facilitate like any drop-in groups or open to community groups as a part of like that programming piece.
You know, when I had my grant, when I had the state opiate response grant, it was part of our grant. And I did have I was able to go up to Obashing, the residential program, a few times. And I did have a group and drop in like assessment days at the NWICDC. One of the tricky parts is that was all unbillable. And so now without the grant, one of the barriers, like I said, that we're trying to navigate and figure out is that work was really important with getting people, you know, in the program. So one of the new barriers now, our grant only ended in December, which is why I make it sound like it wasn't that long ago. But one of the barriers now that we're trying to figure out is how can we continue some of that work without it, you know, without it taking too much of the billable time. You know, like every program deals with that, you know, trying to balance billables and unbillables. I hope that answers your question enough. In a good way.
Yeah, thank you.
Does anybody have any other questions for Mindie?
Well, it was a really big honor to be able to come and present and kind of share some of the things that we're doing up here. In any way that we can connect and support each other's programs in the future. Totally happy to explore what that could look like. I was sharing in the beginning, I really haven't been down to the cities a whole lot, but if it's to come down and tour the program and get to see some of y'all and the work you do, I'm more than happy to make a trip down.
Yes, you're welcome here anytime to tour and see what we're up to. And yeah, is it okay if I share your contact information if anyone has any other questions or
Oh yeah, no problem.
ask through me? Okay. Sounds good. Well, thank you so much for presenting for us today. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. I hope y'all have a good rest of your day.
Thank you, Mindy.
Thank you. And just wanted to remind everyone, our next ECHO session is March 1st. And it's going to be on a Facebook program for American Indian women in OUD recovery from a group from the Mayo Clinic. So join us again. Thank you.